Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well. Today we're going to try our word from the Word. And today that word is forget. Forget. Now, as you come to Numbers chapter 11, right, you're going to see a shift, right? Some things had been going well. Man, we were talking about some good things. And now you're going to see how these cycles of sin and rebellion and punishment and then atonement for those sins and kind of get back through these cycles. And we will see this begin. Will really not begin. It's already begun before, but you're going to see these cycles continue. Now, today, especially dealing with food, I encourage you as always, read the whole chapter. Basically, the people have gotten tired of manna and they're asking for meat. And so part of it, after the complaints come, and we're going to talk about the complaint part here in just a moment, Moses, then he kind of gets upset, and then he's taking the complaints to God, and some of it from his own self, and looking at it, it looks like he's very frustrated, and rightfully so, frustrated with the people being upset. But then you can almost kind of see some frustration with God from his part. God, why did you give me all these people? They don't belong to me. I didn't choose this. If it's going to be this way, just wipe and take me home, right? Just let me die, is what he says. And so then it seems that he's overwhelmed. And so God wonderfully uses 70 other men and leaders in there to kind of share the load a little bit. And then he even has an outpouring of the Holy Spirit on those men, and even two that didn't show up there that were out in the camp. And like I said, you just need to read the whole thing and look at how it is foreshadowing even the day of Pentecost and showing the people that the power of God is not limited to one place. It is the power of God can spread everywhere. And throughout this, you'll see some complaints as well. And you'll see one thing that God says to Moses when he says, well, wait a minute, how in the world could you feed all these men for a month? All these people for a month? And God says, basically says, did you forget who I am? Is there anything outside my power? Now, dealing with this word forget today, let's go back to the beginning. There's been some warnings here in the first three verses that some fire around the camp because of sin. Moses intercedes on behalf and the fire is dissipated. Now, whether or not it was fire, lightning, those type things, regardless, he interceded on their behalf and God answered. Yet here we see right after that in verses 4-6, that's where we're going to dive in today. He says, now the mixed multitude who were among them yielded to intense craving. So the children of Israel also wept again and said, who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our whole being is dried up. There is nothing at all except this manna before our eyes. Now, as you can imagine, even something that tastes good, if you eat enough of it, at times you just seem like, man, I really wish I had something else to eat. Now, it's been over a year that God has been miraculously providing manna for them each and every day, except Sabbath. And remember that the day before Sabbath, he would give enough that they could collect enough that would last through the Sabbath. So God has been giving them this food freely. They didn't do anything for it. He just did it to bless them and to sustain them. Now, here's the thing. Did you notice how quickly they forgot? Now, you say, well, man, it's been a year. They've been eating the same thing. Yes, but what did God do to bring them out of Egypt? And yet now they're remembering the good old days back in Egypt. The fact that the mixed multitude, these are some of the people of Egypt that came with them that, believed in God and are following along with them. That's where you get the mixed multitude part. But yet here they are steering the Israelites away. But then the Israelites quickly agree, you know what? Yeah, man, you're right. I remember eating all that good food back then. Funny thing is they said that they were eating it freely. Now, the mixed multitude, the ones that came from Egypt, maybe they ate it freely, but the Jewish people did not eat freely because they were slaves. Did they forget that they were in bondage? Did they forget that they were enslaved? See, the thing is that we find the same problems in our daily walk, in our Christian life, is that God has freed us from our sin, but sometimes when we've been in the faith for a while, we start longing and craving for the quote unquote good old days. We start, our flesh is saying, hey, I want to go back and have some of that old way of life. Because, man, that was good. Man, that was fun. It wasn't like this is now. It wasn't, I didn't have this to do and that to do, and I didn't have this responsibility and that responsibility. And, man, oh, that was the good old days. But we forget that in those times and in those days, we didn't know God, or we weren't serving God, or if it was before our salvation, right, before He rescued us out of it, we weren't saved. We were hell-bound sinners. Now we're just heaven-bound sinners that have been forgiven. How quickly we forget. But I'll also share this one last thing today. In studying for this and looking through this passage, I ran across the evangelist Luis Palau, and he basically was talking about manna and said, and essentially, and I'll just summarize what he said, that the manna was meant to be boring because the Israelites weren't meant to stay in the wilderness. Remember, it is the rebellion that warrants them having to stay in the wilderness for so long. It is the fact that they rebelled against God, and that whole generation had to die out in the wanderings. That's the whole reason it took so long before they got to the promised land. And I don't know, that just hit me maybe a different way today than any other time reading it. It is how many times are we complaining about what God has blessed us with now, and we will then suffer with that, suffer because of it, because we've rebelled against God, and it was never intended to be that way. It was never intended, right? The manna was to be a temporary thing. Because remember, once they got in the promised land, the manna ceased. Because then the land that was blessed provided for them. But yet in their rebellion ahead of time, their rebellion against a holy God who had rescued them out of Egypt, now they're going to get the meat that they asked for, but they're going to wish they never had. So a lot of other things they're going to ask for. And one of the worst things God could ever give us as judgment is exactly what we ask Him for. How quickly we forget. God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.